Hey everybody, it's Mr. Richards here, and I'm going to show you how to go through Lesson 7. This is a pretty long lesson with a lot of new stuff, so I'm going to break it up into two videos. I will go through up to part 7 with this video, and then lessons, or the rest of it, 8 through 11, I'm going to do on a separate video. Okay, so here we go. Now this lesson brings in a really new and important piece of information, and that is sprites. Okay, and now sprites are just the characters that appear on screen in an app or a video game. So for example, if you're playing Super Mario, Luigi, the Oompa Loompas, the Turtles, Bowser, those are going to be sprites. Okay, so the things that typically move around the screen, we're going to call those sprites. Okay, now to create a sprite, we are going to make a variable, just like we've done before with variables where you use the var and then you name the variable and then you have the gets, or what looks like the equal sign here. The difference is that the create a sprite is going to go into the sort of set equal to or the gets field where we would put like a number for the variable. All right, so that's the first part. The second part is that we need to tell the computer what animation to show for that sprite. Okay, and this is the first time we're going to see the name, a dot, and a set animation. Now, if we're looking at the text version, this is what it would look like. Okay, so we're making a variable called fruit. We're making that variable a sprite, and then we're taking the fruit.setAnimation and then saying what that animation is going to be. Okay. The third and final part about this, when you make all of your sprites, is that we have this final command that is draw sprites. Now, if we take this command out, nothing is going to show up on the screen. Okay, so we do have to make sure that we put in the draw sprites command, and we'll see that they now show up on the screen. Now, the location of this draw sprites is important because if we put draw sprites after we've initialized or made this first sprite, but before we make the second sprite, that second sprite is not going to show up. Let's see that here. The vegetable animation or the carrot is not going to show up because we have drawn the sprites before we've made that one. Okay, so typically we want to put draw sprites last unless there's a very special circumstance. Okay, so this is the first part. We have a video which is going to tell you a lot of information about sprites, so I would really suggest that you watch that. And I'm going to move on to part 3, the skill building. All right, let's give us more instructions here. So we've seen, I've walked through all of this basically, and what we're doing is we want to create our own sprite. Okay, now there's a piece of information, well, there's two pieces of information. First of all, remember how when we draw shapes on the screen, squares and rectangles are placed by their top left corner. But when we create sprites, they're going to be drawn from the center of the sprite. So if we make a sprite that is a rectangle or a square, it's going to actually be drawn from the center, which I think is actually kind of nice. But we'll see if we can get this to work. The second thing I want to tell you is that we have these comments here. And as our code gets more complicated, comments are going to be really useful. Now, in most of the time when you're working, comments will be a block that you can drag onto the screen. If you're working from text, which is kind of difficult on the iPads, but to make a comment with text, it's just 2 forward slashes and then whatever you want, and that will be a comment. And the nice thing about comments is that you can type in whatever you want and they will, not be treated as code. And they're really helpful for making it clear what each part of your code is going to do. And I actually suggest putting comments in before you put any codes in. So first we're going to make a sprite, and you notice that this block has all the information that you need. Variable sprite, we're going to make a create sprite, da, 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 da. Then we have to, let's see if it works. I'll just drag our draw sprite command in here. There we go. So we've created a sprite, and by default, if we don't set the animation of that sprite, it's just going to be a rectangle of size 100, 100. And we'll see that on the grid. Rectangle size 100, 100 with the center placed at 200, 200. Okay, so that looks good. I'll move on to part 4. Okay, this looks like a debug sort of activity. This program should create 2 new sprites, one on the left of the screen and one on the right, but it's only drawing one. You don't need to add any code, just rearrange the code already present to make sure that both sprites show up like the picture on the right. So let's run it. Yep, we see that only one sprite shows up. And this is what I was talking about before. This draw sprites command really needs to be after all of the sprites if you want them all to show up. So by putting it in the middle, we've drawn this first sprite, we've made the first sprite, then we've drawn it, and then we make the second sprite, but we don't draw it. So there's 2 ways you could do this. You could draw sprites again, and then they both show up, or we could just have, make both of them and then draw both of them. Exact same thing. All right, so that's part 4. Okay, part 5. This program draws 4 sprites to the screen, and one of them has an animation from the animation tab. Now the animation tab is something that we haven't seen before, but I'm going to walk you through it right now. So to do this, run the code, see what happens, look in the animation tab to see which animations are available to you. Feel free to alter your animations or choose a new one. Use the set animation command to change the look of your other sprites. Okay, so up here in the top left, we have code and we have animation. And we go to animations, here are our different sprites, and each one of them has a name, and each one of them can be edited on this little editing screen if you want. Okay, so we got alien, bunny, flybot, plain red one, and then you can draw a new animation. And if you draw a new animation, you can really go nuts and draw literally whatever you want, as long as it's school appropriate. Okay, so let's go back to our code. So we've got top left, create sprite, top right, create sprite, bottom left, create sprite, bottom right, create sprite. Set animation on the bottom right to alien, and then draw all the sprites. So I think we should have a rectangle, or I'm sorry, a square, a square, a square, and then an alien on the bottom right. So let's see. Yep, there we go. So let's make each one of these its own sprite. So I'm going to drag in my sprite.setAnimation to all 3 of these, and we'll set the animation to each one. Now, what we need to make sure we do is this name, top left sprite, needs to match this name. So I'm going to do top left sprite, and I'm making sure that I'm capitalizing the S and the L and nothing else, and everything is set correctly. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that with the other ones as well. And then we got bottom left sprite. Okay, so we got all of our sprites named. Now we just need to name them. And what's nice is that each one, it's going to go through the list in your animations tab, and you can just do a drop down flybot, and let's do our plain red one. So now when we do this, we should see those animations. What's wrong? Set animation bunny. We can't figure out what top left sprite is. Oh, I forgot the E at the end of sprite. So you gotta make sure you do it right. There we go. Now everything is showing up. We got a bunny, flybot, red plain or plain red one, and then our alien. So there we go. This is an example of how you can put animations into your sprites. So we will move on to, we got a video, and then the last thing that I'm going to do in this video is lesson 7. Lesson 8, 9, 10, and 11 are going to be in a separate video. So we'll go to lesson 7. Alright, this program draws 3 sprites to the screen, but it's not working yet. The wrong sprite is in front, and one sprite's animation isn't showing up. Do this. Run the code to see what happens, fix the 2 problems in the code. Hint, just like shapes, sprites are drawn in the order they are created. So this is what we want it to look like. We got a can of pop, we've got a ice cream cone, and then get ready appears over both of them. So let's run it. Okay. So we've got the get ready in the back, and it should be in the front. We've got the ice cream cone on the left instead of the right, and we've got nothing for the drinks can. So let's fix this. All right. Okay, here we go. Most of this is going to be dragging stuff around. So let's take a look. We've got message. So our message is create sprite, message, set animation, text, get ready. All right, so that needs to be last. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this one down to the bottom. both parts, the message and the set animation. Then we're going to look drink and dessert. So those look good. The drink should be at 100, 200. The dessert should be at 300, 200. So let's try that. Okay, great. I'm not exactly sure why the drink animation is not showing up in the correct spot. Well, we'll try it out. So soda is not showing up. Let's see. Soda. Well, let's take a look at our animations tab. Soda. Yeah, it's right there, and it's named correctly. So let's go to our code. What's going on here? Drink equals create sprite, drink.set animation. We're not seeing any errors. Dessert is defined, but it's not called in your program. Ah, I see. We have a second animation called drink set animation. So that's why our drink animation is wrong. We're setting it as soda and then we're resetting it to ice cream. So let's make sure we do that. And there we go. Looks good. I think that looks right. Okay, so that is lesson 7, part 7. I'm going to make a separate video for 8, 9, 10, and 11.